everyone. Thanks for joining. Um, I am Jagrati Singh. I'm the facilitator for today's session. So welcome everyone. And
Hi Jagriti, I think we can't hear you.
Is it better now, David? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining, and a very warm welcome to all of you. We'll start today's session. The topic for today's session is stress. How can we control stress through Sahaj Yoga techniques? So let me just ask if there's anyone who is joining for the first time. Can you please maybe unmute yourself and speak out, or just on the chat window you can write if you're joining for the first time today.
This is my second time, but the first one was introduction. Actually, this is, now it makes my first join in here today.
Okay, yeah. So it looks like there's no one joining for the first time, David. So we can start the session, and if anyone joins later on, then we can assign the breakout room then. Okay. So we'll start today's session as usual with balancing with meditation, and then we'll go into the details of the topic today. I am also going to try to share my screen as well, so that I can present a small presentation that we have prepared. So just give me a couple of seconds here.
Jagriti, I have it here if you want. I can also share if you prefer.
Okay, yeah, David, that would be great if you can share it on the screen. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, so what we plan today is to start with, as usual, with collective bandhan. Now, Mustafa, I know this is your second time, so you might not be very much acquainted with what bandhan is. We'll get to that later on. So just essentially where we raise the energy within us and kind of puts us into a state where we can start meditation without any interruptions.
Yeah,
So
by
we'll
the way,
take that.
I just want to interrupt you. Sorry, your voice is a little bit quieter than normal.
Okay, is it better now?
It's better now, much better. Thank you.
Then we followed by balancing and meditation. And then what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about stress, what stress is. All of us know what stress is, but just to recap that, and then an introduction to the subtle and physical body within us. And after that, we'll hear a speech from Srimataji on the relation between stress, heat, and the subtle energy center within us. After the speech, we'll just kind of talk a little bit about today's topic. What are the various ways in Sahaj Yoga that we can relieve stress? Essentially, the treatments of the liver. And then again, followed by meditation, where we will kind of use those practical, those treatments, those applications and meditate for a while. Followed by, I've just collated some material on various topics of research that have happened in the past 30 or 35 years or so. We'll go through that a little bit, followed by a kind of an interaction session where if you have any questions, follow-ups, or any feedback, you can share it with us. So let's start. We will take Bandhan. We'll raise our energy and take Bandhan. So if you go to the next slide, here, this is just a short introduction of what balancing is, and for people who are seeing this for the first time, just a quick intro. Balancing is where we have two channels, one on the left side and other on the right side. So this is a very simple technique that we use to kind of balance those two channels. So for balancing the left side, we keep our right hand on the ground or on Mother Earth, and we take certain affirmations, which I will kind of introduce when we do it. And to clear the right channel, we place our left hand towards the sky like this, palm facing backwards. And then again, we'll take certain affirmations here as well. So let's do that. Let's close our eyes.
Jagriti.
Yeah.
Just one question, because some people join kind of in the last few minutes. There is anyone coming for the first time? If you could ask if there is.
Is there anyone coming for the first time? Please, you can write in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and speak out if there's anyone coming for the first time today. It doesn't look like David, so I think we can continue. Okay, so let's close our eyes. We'll keep our right hand towards the ground, or on the ground if you're sitting on the ground. We'll steady our attention and we'll just say within ourselves, Mother Energy, please clean our left channel. Please remove all the problems of my left channel to Mother Earth. Mother Energy, please take away all the thoughts from my past, all the imbalances that are caused from my emotions. Now we'll keep this hand back on the lap and left hand towards the sky. Here we will say, Mother Energy, please take away all the imbalances of my right channel into the sky. Please take away all the thoughts of my future, all the planning, and all the thinking. Please dissolve them into the sky element. You could also feel that something from your palm is going away, like the heat or heaviness from the palm is going into the sea. Now we'll bring this hand down, back on the lap. And we'll keep our right hand on the forehead. Bend the head a little bit down. And here, with conviction, we will say, Mother Energy, I forgive everyone. We have to assert that we have this power of forgiveness and we can forgive everyone. So we'll just say, we forgive everyone, including myself. Now we'll stretch out the right palm and keep it on top of the head and applying a little bit of pressure on the head. Here we will say, Mother Energy, I want to get my self-realization. Please rise on my central channel and take me into the state of thoughtless awareness. very slowly, you keep this hand back in the lap. Here, we are going to meditate now for 5 minutes. In this time, let us try to keep our attention on top of the head, where we just kept our hand. And if the attention is not going there or not steady, then we can just say, not this. So any thought that we get, we can just say, not this thought, not this thought. Now we can open our eyes and we can go into the details of today's session. So as you know, the session today is on managing stress. What are the various methods within Sahaja Yoga that we can apply in our daily lives to manage stressful situations. So if we move on to the next slide here, all of us know about this, what stress is. We have seen it in our lives to a lesser or a larger extent. So I will just quickly recap it and set the stage for how this is connected to our subtle body. So stress is anything that causes anxiety, worry, fear, apprehensions, or anger. And that one thing about stress is that if you are in a state, continuously in a state of stress, that's when it starts physically impacting your well-being. It is also said, studies have said that some stress is good for us. So because it takes us out of boredom or takes us out of the left channel or state of inactivity or depression. But stress at larger or higher levels can impact us negatively. So there's a threshold, it is also called as the stress threshold, where any more pressure, if we take, it becomes counterproductive. This threshold is different for different people. It depends on how the person is set up, what is the strength of the person. But definitely, if you are in stress for a longer period, your body gets impacted by it. Now, the response to the stress is essentially, there are three stages to it. The first one is alarm. Alarm is essentially where your nervous system gets stimulated. Your heart rate increases, your muscles become stiff, breathing increases. So this is the first stage where the body is being told that, the system, either you fight with it or you flee the situation. Now, the second step is resistance, where the body knows that the situation is stressful, and it starts reacting to it. It starts, body chemistry starts changing. So there's adrenal and other secretions from the gland body produces them, and it is kind of working to fight that situation. And the third stage is exhaustion. Exhaustion is where the body has worked very hard to fight the situation, but the resources are exhausted. So this is where a person is in stress for a very long period, and now the body is almost giving up. This is the situation where what we call as the body is vulnerable now, because it does not have any more resources to fight the situation. So what we will talk about today is essentially how to deal with the third situation, how to bring our body back to normal when the resources are completely exhausted. What are the subtle energy centers within us that play a role in this process, and how we can put them, those energy centers into balance. So if we go to the next slide. Now, what you can see here on the right-hand side is our physical system. This has been proposed, and it has been proven by medical science. On the right-hand side, extreme right, you will see there are 7 plexus within our body. These plexus are like nodes. They're nerve centers where the nerves kind of emerge and they go out to various parts of the body where that plexus is located. These plexus are within the spinal cord. So if you will see, the spinal cord has kind of nodes in these plexus reside there. And then also you will see small diagrams there that kind of tell us what parts of the body they control. Now, the one that is highlighted in yellow, that's our aortic plexus, as we call it. It is located midway between the bottom of the spine and in the belly button. So it's kind of lower part of the body, and this plexus controls the surrounding areas of the lower parts of the body, or the lower abdomen. Now, if we go to the left-hand side, there's a picture of the subtle system within us, and you will see that there are 7 points there as well, starting with the lowermost, the orange circle that you will see there. Now, these are the energy centers that we have talked about in our previous sessions. Now, the aortic plexus, these plexus have a corresponding component in our subtle body, which we call as energy centers. And for aortic plexus, the second center here, Swadhisthana chakra, as we call it, is kind of the analogous energy center in our subtle body. These centers are also located within the spinal cord. Now, what happens, the Swadhisthana chakra, as it is situated in the lower abdomen, it covers, or it looks after 4 organs in our body. On the right-hand side, it takes care of the liver and the and kidneys. And on the left hand side, it takes care of spleen and pancreas. Um, and then very quickly we will get to how the centers get affected when we are in the state of stress, and we'll have Shri Mataji has explained what is the relationship between these four organs, and when we are in a state of stress, heat is generated, and how heat flows on our left channel and the right channels. But before we go to that speech, very quickly, I will just kind of talk a little bit about what are the functions of these four organs. So, liver, as you know, is a very important organ within our body. It produces bile. It helps in digestion, and this is the known kind of function of liver. But it is also responsible for regulation of the heat within our body. So any heat that we generate, be it because of fear or excessive thinking when we are in a stressful situation, its liver is responsible for kind of removing that heat into the bloodstream from various organs. And liver also has a third function of taking the energy and converting that to gray cells of the brain. And then kidneys on the right hand side, just below the liver, they are responsible for removing all the toxins within our body. Then on the left hand side, spleen is responsible for controlling the natural rhythm or pace of the body. And then pancreas, as you know, is responsible, produces insulin, and is responsible for the blood glucose level in our body. So these are the four organs. And now we'll play a speech from Shri Mataji, and she talks about how the heat and the stress produced by the heat affects these four organs, and what can we do about it. So David, if we can go to the next slide and play the speech for 10-15 minutes.
I bow to all the seekers of truth. I'm happy you all are enjoying this music and this dancing. And about these artists, I have to say that after coming to Sahaja Yoga at a very young age, they achieved such mastery. Because when the Kundalini rises, as I told you, she enriches your centers. The center about which I was going to talk to you today is the center of creativity, which looks after your power of action, physical and mental. This power of action moves on the right side of the spinal cord, and coming to the optic chiasma, it crosses over, passes to the left side and creates an institution called ego. The institution of ego is a myth. What we do is to get something dead, like some trees dead, so make some platform or some furniture. We take some stones and make a hall, and we think we have done a great job. Actually, what we have done is to reconstruct the dead. But while doing it, we get the feeling that we have done it something. That is how our ego develops. This channel on the right hand side caters to your future. So those people who plan too much think too much exhausts the energy of the center, because the center has the first responsibility to convert the fat cells in the stomach for the use of the brain, which is overused, to make them into gray cells. So when you start thinking too much, it has to work more for this very important function. When it starts working for one function, the other functions are neglected. And the other functions are, it has to cater, to nourish, or to give energy to your liver, to your pancreas, to your spleen, to your kidneys, and part of your intestine. So, once you start neglecting these organs, first your liver suffers. Means the function of liver gets limited. The function of the liver basically is to absorb the heat of the body, which is the poison, and allow it to permeate into the bloodstream. But the energy is so limited that it cannot function properly. So this center starts neglecting liver, and liver then cannot get rid of all the heat of the body. So the heat starts flowing upward. When it starts flowing upward, then there's a center, what we call as the right heart, which gets affected. People develop a disease called asthma with it. Also they develop the disease, what we call as a massive heart attack on the left-hand side, when the heat reaches there. They also can develop a paralysis of the right side when it reaches the brain. The vulnerability is there. And then it is triggered somehow by the left side action maybe. Such people are futuristic. They go on planning for the future. Future doesn't exist. Only the present is the truth. But they go on planning about future, waste their energies, and ultimately find that all their plans fail. One must know the divine plan. If you know the divine plan, then you don't have to plan, because you know the divine is already planning for you everything. When you understand after realization that everything is done by Param Chaitanya, by this all-pervading power, by this Ruh, then you do not think that you are doing something. Moreover, as I told you, when the Kundalini rises through the Agya Chakra, both these institutions of ego and superego are sucked in, so there is no ego. So you become egoless. So your karmas or your duties or your so-called work you have done become akarmas. Then you don't talk like this, that I have done this, I have done that. They say, oh, it's rising, it's happening, it's working out. You start speaking in the third person. Even sometimes children you will find, they talk like that. This little boy won't go because it is obstinate. They'll talk about themselves. If you notice, if they are real life schools, they talk like that, in the third person. So you become a third person. And nourishment to this energy, to this center comes through your realization. As the Kundalini is connected to the mains, as a result, you get into balance. You are in thoughtless awareness. Somebody has asked me about the thinking yesterday. So the thought arises from the past or from the future. As we have a capacity to react because of the construction of our body as a prism. It's a little scientific thing, but if you listen to some of my lectures, you'll understand what I mean. Now what happens when you see something, you react. Anything you see, you react. You see this carpet, you'll react. You will see this mic, you'll react. You'll think something about it. So a thought comes either from the future or from the past, and there's a wave of thought coming and going, again thought coming and going. It comes and disappears. In between these thoughts, there's a little space, which is the present. But if I say you pay attention to yourself, to your present, you cannot. Unless until you are a realized soul. So when the Kundalini rises, these thoughts become, they lean out, means they become thin. When they become thin, the space in between increases, and that's how you become thoughtlessly aware. So the thinking is minimized. Then the liver doesn't have to do all the time the job of converting your fat cells into grey cells. It comes into balance. Then the second one is the pancreas. That is neglected too. In a person who is futuristic, who thinks too much, plans too much, that also becomes neglected. Now, the function of the pancreas is to absorb the sugar into bloodstream in a proper way. But because it is neglected, it has a very limited energy, it cannot function, so you get diabetes. Because of too much thinking, you get diabetes. As I told you yesterday that in India, if you have to give tea to someone, be careful if he's from a village. Because in the village, you have to put so much sugar that the spoon should stand at right angles, otherwise it's no tea for them. And they never get diabetes, never get diabetes. Diabetes is the headache of the people who sit on chairs, write, think, worry, and are time bound. All such people get diabetes. They are futuristic, egoistical, arrogant, hot-tempered. And such people get also heart attacks, which are of a massive nature. The left heart is connected in a way. When there's too much of exertion on the physical side, also one can get heart attack. The another type of heart attack one gets is a angina. That's due to some other reason. That's due to the lethargic heart. So now we have another problem which is very serious, is that of the spleen. Spleen is the speedometer. It's the one that gives us rhythm. If we are rhythmic in life, spleen keeps all right. But we are very hectic. And the function of the spleen is to create red blood corpuscles whenever there is an emergency. So the way we are always under a shock. Early in the morning you get up, what do you see? You read the newspaper, horrid news. I mean, newspapers have to give horrid news. They never give good news, you know. They say we don't want to say if some plane has landed safely, but but if there's a disaster, so many have died, killed in action, murders, horrible things, naturally you get a shock because you are a human being. And in a subconscious you feel in the unconscious area, you get the jerk. There's a shock. Then you start the day in a hectic way. You are time bound, you have to rush, you can't take your breakfast, you just take something, grab. Rush to the car or maybe on anything, and then you find a jam. In modern days, everything keeps you on attention. Then you reach the office, there's the boss is getting angry with you because you are late. As it is, I don't know how much work we really produce. Only the mess we have created in this world, I think, much more in the modern times than much work. We cannot have people like Mozart nowadays. We can't have anyone like Michelangelo. We cannot have any artists who can create beautiful things. We do not have beautiful buildings now, horrible plastics. We cannot have beautiful artistic clothes. Everything is becoming plastic, and for which we are working so very hard to create plastic mountains. All this leads to tensions. So we become tense. And the tensions go on increasing as this ego increases, covers all your head. And you go into tension. But the worst thing that happens to you, that this spleen, which is the one responsible for keeping the rhythm of your life, goes hectic and becomes crazy. It doesn't understand what sort of a personality you are. Sometimes you rush to that, sometimes you rush to that. There's no rhythm in your life. So it gets upset. And it starts producing red blood corpuscles unrhythmically. It doesn't know. So the vulnerability is there. And as soon as there's any triggering from the left side, you develop a horrible disease called blood cancer. And the only treatment you can have in the medical science is that you will be certified that you will die after 8 days or after 1 month. That's the only possibility. But with Kundalini awakening, your own power nourishes this center and supplies energy, soothes down your hectic speedometer, which is the spleen, and the disease gets cured.
So that was Srimati explaining about the connection of heat and how it impacts various organs, and how does the awakening of the energy within us helps us to get into balance. For those of us who are hearing Srimati for the first time, Srimati is Nirmala Devi, Nirmala Srivastava. She propounded Sahaj Yoga in the year 1970, and from then onwards she has traveled across the world, talking about this technique and giving self-realization to people. She has given at various locations. She has delivered speech on this topic, and this was an excerpt from there. As you've heard Srimati talking about thoughtless awareness, and that is the treatment for bringing us back into balance. Now, along with that, there are various other techniques as well that augment our journey towards thoughtless awareness. So if we move to the next slide. Here, if you see, these are just the first four are essentially what are the things we can do in our daily lives. Cure our liver, The first one is the vibrations. So when we sit in meditation, if we keep our left hand on the liver on the right hand side, so liver is just below our rib cage, of the rib cage on the right hand side. So if we keep it there and meditate, the energy passes to liver and liver starts cooling down. The other one, when it comes to vibrations, is you can also keep our left hand, what we did today in the beginning of the session, we can keep our left hand towards the sky, and that also helps to regulate the heat, because the heat always moves upwards. So it can go into the sky element when we do that. The second one here is changing habits. So essentially, like if we are very futuristic, if we do a lot of planning and we want to be in control, then we can always make a conscious effort not to do it. But this comes automatically when we meditate. Automatically, the energy, when it rises, it puts us into balance. So these qualities, if we have, they will become less and less dominant. But at the same time, we can also put in a conscious effort not to go into a lot of planning or to let go of things. Second one is, if your life is very hectic, then you can just take time for yourself, relax for some time, spend time doing nothing or not thinking in that way. The third one is, if you have a lot of work to do, if your plate is full of tasks, maybe delegate some of those activities so that you are not spending your whole day, doing things and, being in stress and generating heat within your body. The fourth one, as I mentioned, reducing activity of attention and controlling thoughts. This again comes through meditation automatically, but again, conscious effort can be put into this. And finally, introspection and forgiveness. So introspection is actually really important, because when we sit and think or reflect about how the day was, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, or what we shouldn't have done, that kind of thinking or reflection also helps. When you do the same thing next time, it comes to your mind that this is something probably that you should not be doing. So introspection, if you take some 5-10 minutes at the end of the day or beginning of the way to introspect and kind of even think about what changes would you like to happen in your life, then even that helps, because that comes into your conscious mind, and then we start working towards it. Also, when we try to control thoughts, some of the thoughts come through the grievances or grudges we have against someone. So if we forgive people and keep on forgiving people, then those thoughts also subside. The next one that actually helps the liver directly are the cooling treatments. So as we know that, all of these problems on the right or left-hand side come through overactivity of the liver or heated liver. So we can apply directly cooling to the liver. So one of them is you can apply ice pack to it. So you can take an ice pack and keep it in the freezer for some time, take it out and keep it where the liver is. Maybe you can wrap it up in a towel and keep it there so you don't feel a lot of cold. And then maybe 5 minutes or 7 minutes there, that cools the liver down. And as the liver cools down, you will see that the natural rhythm of the body, the pace at which you were working, that also diminishes. The second one here is foot soaking that we discussed last a couple of weeks back. Of you can put our feet in water, in cold water, so that also helps in taking away the heat. There are some dietary changes that we can make if the liver is very hot. Like you can eat food that cools down the liver, like sugar cane juice, white rice, yogurt, vegetables, salads. These are all foods that are cool and cool down the liver. And cardamom, ginger, chickpeas, again, cooling agents. If the liver is very hot, what is not recommended is alcohol or fatty foods, because they generate heat when the food is digested. So these foods, or maybe heavy red meat, etc., that should not be consumed if you have a severe liver problem. So these are like all the aids that help in cooling down the liver, and the results are actually, Srimati talked about all these diseases that come in because of overheated right side. But those diseases, and this has been known through experience, that those diseases that are incurable get cured by meditation and using these simple techniques that we have here. We will post these treatments because there's a comment on the chat group. So we'll post these treatments as well as the subtle body chart after the session, so that you can have a look later on as well. And obviously, you know, the best treatment for heat, for stress, for liver problems is meditation. There are many people who have had, you know, serious health complications that have been treated just through meditation itself. And I mean, it's my personal experience. I have people in my family, in my very close family, you know, suffering from asthma, very chronic asthma. And as they started meditating, you know, it was like we were not even looking for treatment of asthma, but the disease got cured on its own as the person started, you know, meditating and started growing deeper into their thoughtless awareness. So this was just a quick summary. We wanted to actually kind of meditate a little bit more, maybe 5 more minutes, and do some of these treatments, like especially the one that is related to vibrations, etc. But we are a little bit short on time. So what I will do is I'll get to the next slide, which talks about a little bit about various kinds of research that has been done on you know, effects of meditation. There are many citations on it, and it was difficult for me to put it here because of 2 reasons. First is I'm not coming from this field, so the interpretation is difficult. It is very technical in nature. But very briefly, you know, if it is of interest, and we can share those citations later on. You know, is the table that you see here. So this research was carried out in New Delhi, and essentially where the EEG was monitored for the control group or the experimental group for brain activity before and after meditation. So these are the results. Initial stages, when the meditation is started, the alpha brainwave pattern increases, which creates a sense of relaxed awareness. This we have already kind of noticed in our sessions as well. When you meditate, you know, you relax, and your the natural rhythm of the body is kind of reverted back. As the meditation progresses, the brain activity shifts to long chains of low voltage theta activity, which kind of matches with the deep physiological relaxation as we attain it in states of deep sleep. So it's essentially that very deep state of relaxation that we get when we continue in meditation. And then finally, in a very deep meditative state, the pattern was shown to have bursts of high energy beta peaks. So so this was kind of a summary of that experiment. There are citations as well, which I have listed a couple of them below if you want to take a look at it when we share this presentation. These are experiments that have been carried out and have been published in various journals, talking about what are the effects of meditation on our body and on our emotional well-being. So we will share the slide and certain sections of it later on in our WhatsApp group as well, for you to take a look at it. And that was all I wanted to cover today. If there are any questions or any feedback, we have some time. We can talk about it now. Or if there's any experience that you would like to share during meditation, when you're meditating at home or even here, please feel free to do so. Okay. So we will stop today's test session now. Thank you everyone for joining, and hope you get time to meditate at home. We'll have our session will be the next week's session will be again on Thursday, the same time, 7:30 to 8:30, 1 hour session. And the topic for next week will be creativity, which is again linked to the same chakra that we talked about today, Swadhisthana chakra. So thank you everyone for joining, and hope you have a good week.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was very useful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.